Hi, welcome back. This is Anna again from Accelerated Excellence, NLP Coaching and Training Center. And in this recording, I want to give you the second step to that exercise that we spoke about in the previous recording. So we spoke about language and how incredibly powerful the words are that we use, and that should shift to and focus on what it is that we want instead. So your task was to go and write down in one of the very previous recordings, what was all the reasons and beliefs and concepts and assumptions that held you prison and stuck in terms of what stops you from getting to your outcomes, right? So, and then flip it across to what do you want instead. So I've done I've done 5 examples just to give you an idea of the concept of what we want to work on, and explain to you the different ways of using language and using words to describe it in a different way, that you can read a statement like that every single day, and that will start imprinting into your beliefs and into your unconscious space as replacing one of the old filters and cleaning it up, and you getting your reticular activating system to match that instead of the stuff you don't want, right? So some of the examples that I've written down here is failure, ill health, not being good enough, rejection, financial pressures, right? Just I'm generalizing a few concepts that most people could resonate with and understand, that it's relatable. Most of us at some point in our life has experienced this fear of failure, or a feeling of not feeling good enough, or the fear of being rejected, or financial pressures, or not being healthy, right? So what do I want instead? Instead of failure, what we would want instead is success, right? So instead of ill health, what would we want? How do you describe that? Optimum health, perfect health, ideal weight, whatever it might be. What are the words that describe that for you? Not being good enough is as simple as being good enough, right? So just the opposite of that. We don't have to be overly creative with the words, but literally just the opposite. If I don't want to not feel good enough, I want to feel good enough. I want to acknowledge I'm good enough. So opposite of rejection would be acceptance. And financial pressures, what is that? Is it abundance to you? Is it financial comfort? Is it financial freedom? What is the word that describes, what are the words that will describe it for you, what it is that you want ultimately? What you might have found with doing this exercise, with just flipping it across, that you actually have to stop and think in some of those, like, what is the opposite of that? You know, you might, I've worked with people that wanted to stop smoking before, and they say, well, I don't want to smoke. So what do you want to do instead? Well, I don't want to smoke. Good. So what do you want to do instead? So what do you want what's the opposite of that? You know, and so your mind is so used to saying what I don't want, that actually when you have to stop and think about what it is that you do want, you really have to think about it. Now think about that. So if you cannot even verbalize what the opposite is, how did we ever expect to experience that if we don't even know what it is? So there's obviously affirmation or feedback there, that we haven't thought about what we wanted actually in a way that the mind will understand it, that we're not typing into our Google search bar the actual words of what it is that we're looking for. We are keeping our focus on the stuff that we don't want, which makes it incredibly difficult for you to change if that's all you focus on. So literally finding the opposite of what is it if I don't want to feel rejection, what is it that I want to feel instead? It is acceptance, right? So here's some examples of words, and what I will do is once I've posted the video, I'm going to type them into the post itself so that you have some examples to work with there, right? So I love knowing that. You can say, I love knowing that my ideal career, or I love knowing that my ideal health, or I love knowing that my ideal partner, or ideal relationship, or whatever it might be, but I love knowing, right? So that could be one example. I love how it feels. Yeah, so for example, I love how it feels when I achieve something and I'm successful, or I love knowing that I am successful. More and more is another way of starting. More and more I acknowledge my success. More and more I become aware of this. More and more I am successful. More and more I'm creating results. So more and more can be another way of starting a sentence. I've decided is a very, very powerful, it's almost like I am statements, very powerful, but it's something that you have to believe. You know, if you say, I've decided to be a success, and there's any little voice in your head that goes, oh, I want to see that happening, then maybe I've decided is not the best one to choose. I love the idea of being successful. If there's no negative feedback, then that would be the one that feels most congruent, that you believe is the truth, and that will imprint very quickly, or a lot quicker, into your unconscious mind and into the filters, versus one that has a little bit of resistance. So it's playing with the words in a way that causes you to feel that statement or accept that statement as a truth. Okay, so not being good enough, being good enough. It excites me. It excites me. I'm excited at the thought of. I love seeing myself. I love the idea of. So If good enough is I love seeing myself as good enough, or I love how it feels when I feel good enough, or I'm excited at the thought of accepting I'm good enough, or I'm excited at the thought of being good enough, or I love the idea of knowing that I'm good enough. So there's many ways that we can use words and language to influence that statement and say it in a way that you go, yeah, I do love the idea. I might not yet be there, and I'm not saying I'm a 10 out of 10. Maybe my self-esteem on some days feel like a 2 out of 10, and some days it feels like a 7 out of 10. But how do I get the feeling to a 10 out of 10? And in the next video, I'm going to tell you exactly why the feeling is so important. And so hold on to your hats for those who want to know what the secret is to the secret. And we'll talk about it then. So the feeling that creates that acceptance, or that acceptance of being good enough, because when I accept that I'm good enough, what can I create with that? Not only will I attract opportunities, that I will become aware of the opportunities that I attract, because it is in my focus. So, everywhere it shows up, I'm going to go, there it is, there it is, there it is, because it's in my focus. I'm aware of it, right? So acceptance and financial, let's use the word abundance, for example. I like saying to my clients when we're sitting in the office, are you breathing less air in my office out of fear that you're going to breathe my portion of air in this office? And usually they smile and say, no, not at all. So, we are brought up to believe that money is like a pie with 8 slices. And if you take 2 slices, you're taking someone else's cut. Even if you take, every one of you that go out for a run or do some form of exercise, you are using more oxygen than the fellow that's not, So if that's not causing you to feel guilt at all, it's because your mind knows that there's more than enough. There's abundance of it available, and you don't have to be sparing or scarce with it. And money is the same. It's just a frequency. So we've got to adjust our thinking to the abundance mindset and out of the scarcity mentality. And the scarcity mentality, with all due respect, comes from, the world wars. As we come out of war, it's pretty expensive to have war. And so life is hard and it is tough, because we had to make our own food and make our own clothes and make our own furniture, because we didn't have money for these resources. We had to live off the land and all those type of things. So that scarcity mentality was installed there, and that belief system has been copied and pasted right across. How is it possible that some people can work 4 hours, like the book 4-Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss? How is it possible that some people can sit on a beach and work that way, and other people have to work really, really hard? Because if hard work was the answer, then everybody should be millionaires. There's people out there that work incredibly hard. And the example I used in a previous recording was, if every African woman works really hard just to get water back to the village and to their house, and so why is she not a millionaire? So if it was hard work, then we should all have been there already, because at some point in your life you had hard work. So why is it? Because the environment has changed and that belief system is outdated, right? So we need to say that I love accepting, I love the idea, I love knowing that abundance, financial freedom is available to me. I love knowing that money is abundantly available, just like air. So how do I need to explain it to myself that I would accept it as a truth, and that I can read it every day? And every day meaning, so let's say here's some examples, right? So I've used that success, optimum health, good enough, acceptance, and abundance or financial freedom as examples of clarity statements that I'm now going to turn into sentences with additional words. That is something I can believe and that I can read every day and build my belief stronger until it replaces the old filters or becomes more powerful than the old filters that created resistance. So I love seeing myself successful is an example. I love knowing that I can have or that I can achieve optimum health. I love knowing I'm good enough, or I'm excited at the thought of being good enough, or accepting that I am good enough. And I love how it feels to be accepted, and financial freedom excites me, or more and more financial freedom comes to me, or more and more I'm aware of the abundance. So those are some examples of what you're going to do with those, from the contrast to the clarity. So the clarity statements, you want to use what it is that you want, apply language, and I'll put those examples down for you again. Apply the language to that and create those sentences. Now, I've worked with a client before that gave me 7 pages of clarity statements. She did one in every context area of her life. So health, relationship, career, physical environment, as in her home area where she was living, spiritual, every area of her life that she could think of. She did this contrast to clarity, a full page. So she had like over 20 statements in every area of her life. So I said, okay, So let's just go and take 5 from each area so that you pay attention to every area every day. Or simplify them. Look at what is being explained over and over, just in a different way. So simplify them. Try and get about 10 statements. It's going to not take you long every day for you to go through. And so every morning, if you're already doing your meditation, you can add this to your exercise in the morning. So in other words, read those statements to yourself, contemplate and meditate on them. So what I like to do is I take my journal at night when I get into bed, and I will write down, let's say there's 7 statements. I will read all 7 of them, and the one that sort of grabs me the most for that day is the one that I will start, and I'll rewrite all 7 of them in a new order, from most important to least important, for how I feel in that moment. Now, rewriting them also causes you to spend a lot more time on them. You got a lot more of your senses active there. You can even say it out loud to yourself. So you're seeing it, you're feeling it, you're hearing it. It makes sense to you. Think about it, so the more senses you get involved in reproducing this statement, whether it is just saying it or reading it or writing it down again, the more time you spend on it, the quicker, the deeper it goes into the imprinting of the new beliefs and the new filters. So that's what I like to do. The reason I do them at night is because your last conscious thought will project into your unconscious mind for 4 hours while you're asleep. So there's a tip. And then you wake up that way. So how many times have you gotten into bed at night thinking, oh, tomorrow's going to be a long day? What happens the next day? Long day, right? So when I fall asleep, I want to fall asleep to my mind holding on to those. So I wake up in that amazing space, right? So I wake up to those subtle awarenesses in the back of my mind. And then I read them again when I wake up. So I read them again. And again, I choose the one for that day or in that moment that I feel mostly connected to. And I will so one of my design statements is I love how it feels to be peaceful and present. And so I would get on my treadmill even and run. And I will say, I love how it feels to be peaceful and present and peaceful and present and peaceful and present. And I will just hum it over in my head. And that'll be my focus for the day. It is incredibly powerful in terms of a very subtle, simple exercise, but using language in a way that takes control of your internal state, that holds your thoughts into the direction of where you want to go. Like I said, the effort between heaven and hell is exactly the same. It just depends on which one you're going to feed. The focus is going to, if you are going to focus on thoughts that induces fear and anxiety and sadness, then that's a state of mind that I would call and describe hell, right? I don't think it's a nice place to live in or be in and experience constantly all day long. But having the opposite to that, being in a space that has words like love and joy and peace, that to me represents words that I would explain as heaven, right? So the state of mind will be the state of being. So using these statements every day to imprint into your habit and habitual thinking the state of mind that you seek, because that will be your state of being and the life that you create. Okay, so again, for any of you that are stuck on some of those words that need a little bit of clarity, feel free to send them to me via Messenger. So I've done the exercise. This is the contrast. This is what I don't want. This is what I do want. I'm not sure how to take it from there, and I will help you from there. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Very easy to do, to flip the script, to use language in a way that it makes sense, that you can accept it as your truth, that it's believable, and then you read them every day. Find a place. Maybe it's better when you say it yourself. I've had clients that are more auditory sensitive, so they would record it onto on their phone or their music list, and they would run on it. When they go for their run, they listen to their own voice of these statements. Some of them, I've read them, I've written them down, put them in my journal, put the book on my treadmill in the morning. So when I do my warm-up walk, that's when I read them. I've had them at the office. The minute I walk into my office or my workspace, my mind is so focused on business, I'm no longer thinking of myself. So I had to stop taking them to the office and take them back home, because that's where they were working the best for me. So find where it works best for you. Read them every day. If you can read them twice a day, even better, in the morning and in the evening, and that will create the habit a lot quicker. Okay, so sending you much love, and see you in the next recording.